Japan was profoundly impacted by the American atomic bomb during the Second World War, which nearly paralyzed the nation. However, the transformation Japan has undergone since then is remarkable. The country has consistently led in technological advancements, one notable example being the Shinkansen bullet train. Launched to the public in 1964, the Shinkansen revolutionized transportation at a time when many people preferred cars or airplanes over slower trains. Its introduction marked a significant milestone, as other countries had not yet conceived the possibility of achieving such high speeds on rail. During that era, steam-powered locomotives were still in use in America and Europe, while Japan's innovative rail system was setting new standards for speed. The Japanese government places great importance on the transportation sector due to the country's geographical shape. With its mountainous terrain, Japan features more detours than direct routes between cities. Before the opening of the Shinkansen train line between Tokyo and Osaka in 1964, traveling the 515-kilometer distance by pre-Shinkansen train would have taken about 7 hours. However, the Shinkansen reduced this travel time to just 4 hours. Within a year, the journey time decreased to 3 hours and 10 minutes. And today, some Shinkansen trains can cover the same distance in just 2.5 hours. Japan was first introduced to railways in 1872, starting with narrow-gauge lines that could carry significantly fewer passengers and less freight than necessary. It is believed that British engineers involved in the project recommended narrow-gauge lines to Japan to help introduce the European railway system. Many reports indicate that these engineers also suggested that due to Japan's hilly terrain, it would be more effective to divide the railway lines into smaller segments rather than constructing long stretches. And the Japanese government accepted these recommendations. But Japan's railway administration struggled to convert its network to broad-gauge rails for several decades, particularly around 1920. Despite Japan's continuous economic progress on the Asian continent during this time, the narrow-gauge line remained the standard for the country's railway system. Then, in 1939, Danganresha, or Bullet Train Project, began to take shape. But progress on this project was disrupted in 1941 when Japan became involved in the Pacific War. As a result, the Bullet Train Project was largely stalled. Eventually, some components of this project, including bridges and tunnels, were incorporated into the Shinkansen project. After World War II, Japan did not consider high-speed trains for many years. But as improvements continued over time, the pressure on the country's main rail line increased significantly. By around 1950, the Tokaido Main Line was operating at full capacity, prompting Japan's Ministry of Railways to reevaluate the Bullet Train project. At that time, Shinji Shogo, the railway chief, successfully convinced the government that high-speed rail was feasible. Then, in 1957, a high-speed electric railway was introduced in Japan, capable of running at 145 kilometers per hour on a narrow-gauge line. Its success inspired engineers to develop even higher-speed railways that could operate on broad-gauge lines. Consequently, the first Shinkansen, known as the Zero Series train, was built. But how could such a high-speed train operate through mountainous terrain like that in Japan? To address this challenge, engineers planned the construction of approximately 67 miles of tunnels and 3,000 rail bridges at various points throughout the mountains, aiming to keep the tracks as straight as possible. This design allows the Shinkansen trains to run at speeds of up to 220 kilometers per hour, nearly double the speed of Japanese trains at that time. Additionally, it was decided that only high-speed trains would operate on this line, enabling them to run at full speed without interruptions. However, upon hearing about this ambitious project, many people around the world began referring to it as the Hill of Madness. In 1958, the Japanese government approved the Shinkansen project, and construction of the first phase, the Tokyo to Osaka line, began in 1959. At that time, the project was estimated to cost 200 million Japanese yen. However, such an ambitious undertaking seemed unlikely to be completed at such a low cost, and the project's expenses doubled within 5 years of its initiation. Recognizing the budget shortfall, Japan's railway chief, Shinji Shogo, and chief engineer, Hideo Shima, both of whom played crucial roles in the project's implementation, resigned in frustration in 1963. Following their resignation, various media outlets began criticizing Japan, with many referring to it as the Great Wall of Japan. While other countries focused on developing highways and airports for the future, Japan's pursuit of high-speed rail was seen as misguided. However, these criticisms soon faded when the Shinkansen began carrying passengers for the first time on October 1, 1964, coinciding with the Tokyo Olympics. Previously, the journey from Tokyo to Osaka by conventional rail took about 7 hours, but the Shinkansen was able to complete the same distance in just 4 hours. The speed of the Shinkansen left highway traffic far behind, and it also contributed to a decline in the domestic airline industry. The Shinkansen train system transported over 10 million passengers in its first 3 years, and the demand continued to grow. This increase was largely due to Tokyo being the capital of Japan and Osaka being one of the most populous cities. Thanks to this rail network, anyone traveling to Tokyo can complete their work and return home for dinner on the same day. With the combination of speed and a reliable schedule, the world's first fastest passenger railway system quickly turned a profit. The sleepers were made of concrete to enhance the durability of the railway line, allowing for the continuous operation of up to 50 trains in both directions each day. The rails were manufactured in 82-foot lengths, then transported to the installation site and welded together to form sections approximately 5,000 feet long. These long sections reduced train vibrations and noise. To prevent accidents, rail crossings were eliminated. Instead, bridges were constructed where necessary. Additionally, an automatic railway control system was implemented instead of traditional signals along the track. Given the high speeds, it can be challenging for a driver to react in time to visible signals. Therefore, this automatic control system sends signal information directly to the train's computer, which calculates the train's next speed by integrating its current speed with the incoming signal data. Moreover, the traffic control room in Tokyo continuously monitors the entire line, a crucial feature for any high-speed rail system. Japan is a region prone to earthquakes, and sudden occurrence of large earthquakes is very common. To ensure passenger safety, seismometers have been installed along the train line. When an earthquake is detected, the electricity supplying the line is automatically turned off, and the train's emergency brakes engage. For all that, these lines are constantly under significant stress. To maintain safety, it undergoes regular inspections using a Shinkansen series train known as the Yellow Doctor. This train is equipped with all the necessary tools for testing the tracks. Currently, more than 100 trains operate on this line each day. The success of the Tokyo to Osaka Shinkansen line led to its extension beyond Hiroshima. Since 1975, passenger rail services have been operating on this extended line. Over the following decades, the Shinkansen network expanded across Japan, connecting nearly all major cities, and this expansion continues to this day. Since the launch of the Shinkansen during the Tokyo Olympics, it has become a landmark of Japan for the world. Following Japan's lead, many other countries have developed high-speed rail systems that sometimes surpass the speed of the Shinkansen. Originally, the Shinkansen began operating at a speed of 210 kilometers per hour in 1964 and now runs at 320 kilometers per hour, making it the third fastest railway in the world. However, it remains the safest, most reliable, and punctual railway system globally. In its 60 years of operation, the Shinkansen has never experienced any accidents. In contrast, several high-speed trains in other countries have faced tragic incidents. Currently, Shinkansen trains transport over 1 million passengers each day, with departures every 3 minutes during peak hours. The punctuality of these trains is so impressive that it often evokes jealousy from other nations, as they typically arrive at their destinations within seconds of their scheduled times. A significant part of this success can be attributed to the two visionaries who played a crucial role in initiating this project from the beginning.